Hello my beautiful friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie and I just wanted to tell you I sat for a really long time thinking about what I wanted my first video to be on my new channel. And every time I started thinking about something, it always came back to this story because essentially this is why I started YouTube. I wanted to share with you guys my story of postpartum. Oh gosh. Not expect to cry already. Postpartum depression. My journey with depression has been one that I've struggled with my whole entire life. In my pregnancy, I found myself very depressed. For me, being pregnant in Germany was really hard. It was really hard. It was hard for me to watch my belly grow and know that my sister couldn't touch or feel the baby kick. It was hard for me knowing that my friends wanted to throw baby showers and things for me, but the only way to do that would be through Skype. It was hard for me to be away from them. And I missed out on a lot of the cultural norms that take place in my country. In the US, it's very often the case that having a baby is not only a fact of life, but a big celebration, and it's something that the whole family shares together. The German way is more practical. Well, you're having a baby, and that's great and everything, but in the US it was more, you're having a baby, we're having a baby. Like, it was just so, the feeling was very different. So I guess in my mind I expected some of the culture in Germany when I was pregnant, but it wasn't the case. I found myself having to accept that, okay, you really are in a foreign country and the attitude and the mindsets are different about these things, and you have to be okay with that. And I made peace with that, but a part of me still felt like, you know, I miss my family. I miss my mom, I miss my sister, I miss really the women in my life that I really wanted to share this with. I remember people were even very confused that I would buy clothes for the baby before the baby was even born, or my husband and I put together a nursery before the baby was even born. And a lot of people that we encountered just thought, that's crazy, that's the craziest thing. So I often found myself having to defend my cultural beliefs and defend my instincts and what I wanted to do or what I felt was right. I found myself having to defend that. My pregnancy was also very difficult, very, very, very difficult. I was on bed rest for quite a bit. I found myself arguing with doctors my whole pregnancy. My regular doctor was fantastic. My regular OBGYN was absolutely fantastic, but I was often in and out of the emergency room for different things, and my guard was just always up. There was in general just, I would say, a lack of trust between me and many of the doctors that I was around. I was on bed rest. Again, I missed having my support. I missed my family more than I can explain. So all of a sudden I'm pregnant, and I had this wave of not only depression and anxiety about the medical system that was treating me, but I also had a lot of homesickness, just missing my family more than I've ever missed my family in my life. If I can think of one specific thing that happened that pushed me over the edge emotionally, was a few weeks before Callan was born, less than a month before Callan was born. My husband's family fell apart. I don't want to go into too many details because it's not my story to share, but it affected me and impacted me greatly. All of a sudden, a very specific person who was in our lives was gone, and he chose to be. The whole intermediate family had to deal with that and had to cope with that. So we found ourselves going from getting ready for having a baby, getting ready for becoming parents. We suddenly found ourselves healing and coping. And I would say that particular thing triggered a lot in my recovery. What it did was it put a lack of trust in me. And not only was I already having trust issues with the people that were treating me in this pregnancy, but now even on a personal level, my trust was broken. I remember specifically at that time not even trusting Roman, my own husband, because I felt like in my mind just thinking he was just gonna leave me. And that was hard to say, but that's how I felt. When I gave birth to Callum, the birth experience was long and hard. I was in labor for about 50 hours. I wanted an epidural. They misplaced the epidural, so the epidural worked basically like my feet. I felt everything else. It was a hard, excruciating experience, and I know that women give birth without epidurals every day. You know, that's great. A lot of times that's in their plan. This wasn't my plan. I wanted an epidural. I wanted a really smooth, easy delivery, and it wasn't the case. It was really hard, really painful. And I gave birth to Callum at 11:52 at night, almost midnight. And so basically right after he was born, I was with him and Roman for a brief period of time, but then it was time for Roman to leave, and we wanted a private room. I had expected to be in a private room, but there were no private rooms, and so Roman wasn't allowed to stay with me overnight, and I was so nervous, so nervous. I'm forgetting all the vocabulary for different things, like my brain was in a big mess. I had this new baby, and I just became a mother hours later, and now I'm by myself with this baby, and I've got people that are recovering for different reasons. Some of them gave birth, others had other kinds of surgeries. It was just, the recovery was really hard in the hospital that first night. And I remember Callum started crying, and the woman who was in the bed across from me, she didn't have a baby, but she was recovering in the bed across from me. And she said, "Can you just get that baby to be quiet?" And every time Callum would make any sort of sound or newborn noise or any sort of sign of being upset, she would just yell at me and bark at me and make really nasty comments to me. And I remember holding Callum thinking, okay, you and I, we are alone here. We are alone, and there's no one that knows you like I do. There's no one else that can take care of you like I can. It's you and me. And I felt this immense weight on my shoulders. Just, Roman was gone, and I had all these trust issues that were taking place and happening, and my family was kind of apart. But at the end of the day, here I am, a new mom. I'm alone with this baby, and I have to just make everything work. I remember looking at Callum, and I was just so madly in love. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way I could let anything hurt you, ever. And those feelings, they stayed with me. They didn't leave. And we went home, and those feelings that I had, they didn't leave when I left the hospital. They stayed with me, and I struggled the moment that we got home. Callum had colic as a new baby and cried a lot. It always felt like he was crying because he was in immense pain, and I remember going in and out of the doctor, in and out of the pediatrician's office, just crying to his doctor, saying something's wrong with him. He cries all the time. And the doctor's response was not really supportive. It was basically, well, give him formula. I remember being really confused by that because I was breastfeeding, and I had wanted to breastfeed. So for the doctor to just all of a sudden tell me, well, just give him formula, it wasn't really, it was a little surprising to me, and it seemed like the doctor didn't really listen to me. I am so grateful that I did have a midwife to come and check on me and help with the breastfeeding thing. In Germany, it's common to have a midwife come and check on you for the first 6 to 8 weeks after you have a baby. And the midwife was really helpful in that she encouraged pumping and then providing a little bit of milk in a bottle after Callum nursed. That was a solution that worked really well. And after a few days of doing that, my milk was great, everything was fine. Callum was still very colicky, but he was gaining weight and doing all the milestones that he needed. And he didn't really get out of the colicky phase until he was about 4 months old. What that did was, again, just reinforce the lack of trust that I had in people around me. That lack of trust created a lot of anxiety in me. I remember not even trusting Roman to hold Callum. He was a brand new father and he was dealing with his own stuff, working full time and working on his MBA, and of course things happening in his family, and now he's a new father and he's got a wife who's, for lack of better words, not all with it. I was not able to be a wife, and I wasn't able to really communicate that to him and how I was feeling. And when I did try to communicate things, it was often in a way that would start fights and start arguments, and I was very, very, very combative and very argumentative, and I would, I'll never forget, Roman opened a window, because in Germany it's very common, you open your windows to let fresh air in and out. He opened a window and he had Callum in his arms, and Callum was not near the window, but I remember just screaming at Roman, screaming at him that he was gonna let the baby fall out of the window because he opened the window, and we don't have open windows in our home as long as we have children. Like, I was so mad at him, and like looking back, it's like, well, of course you would open a window. Like, that's nonsense not to, but in my mind, I could physically see him drop Callum and Callum fall out of the window. I could physically see this, and it haunted me. I would wake up in the middle of the night just screaming because I could see really bad things happening to my child and I couldn't get it out of my head. I wouldn't dare leave him with anybody because I was convinced that that person would hurt my child in some way. Such a strong, immense feeling of anger, and I didn't trust anybody, and feeling lonely and tortured inside. I missed being able to smile. I missed being able to look at my baby and not see really bad things happen to him. I wanted so desperately to just hold my baby because I loved him, and not hold him because if anyone else held him, he would die. It was excruciating to not trust anybody around me. It was excruciating to feel the immense pain that was in my heart because of things that had happened in our family. It was the loneliest time of my life. It was the loneliest, scariest time of my life because I wasn't sure if I would ever feel like myself again. I think having to basically fight my way through my pregnancy, and then again shortly postpartum as a new mom, and looking back now, I can see how a lot of things were put in place, almost like a domino effect. They were just put in place perfectly to just knock down each domino, to just finally get to the point where I didn't trust anybody. I will honestly say I didn't love anybody except for my son at that time. I never felt negative feelings towards my child. I did feel negatively about motherhood, but I didn't feel, it was almost like I hated everything else in my life and everyone else in my life, but I was madly in love with this child, and I felt like he and I were against the world. I was a failure of a daughter-in-law. I was a failure of a wife because Roman deserved somebody that was happier. And I just felt like I was a failure as a mother because I couldn't get my child to stop crying. I knew that there are a lot of things that were not in my control, but I internalized all of it. I put it on myself. And I felt very much so that it was he and I against the world. And breastfeeding was the only thing that I could do where I felt like I was really his mom and I was really doing a good job. Every time I was right and the doctors were wrong, which was very often in my pregnancy and as a new mom, it was like, it almost like it reinforced those feelings of loneliness, and because it was a fight. It was a fight. The next thing that was really difficult was after I had Callum, because I was struggling with losing weight. I was a couple of months postpartum. I was huge. I was the biggest I'd ever been. I hadn't lost a single ounce. And I went to the doctor, and I remember sitting telling him about feeling so sad and crying, and I started telling him about all these things going on. In my mind, I remember thinking, maybe, just maybe, he'll ask the right question. I remember him sitting in front of me and he looked at me in the eyes, and I was telling him with tears in my eyes while holding my baby that I was crying all the time, and I felt so low, and I felt so ugly, and I felt like the worst wife ever, and I just felt like, I just felt so depressed all the time. I even used the word depression. I feel so depressed all the time. And he told me that the reason why I was depressed was because I was fat. That's what he said to me. And I remember that stunned me. I couldn't believe that a doctor, first of all, had said that, but especially to a new mom who just had a baby a few months ago, who was crying and scheduled an appointment to talk to you. And that's what he told me, that I would feel better if I lost weight. And the way that you lose weight is through diet and exercise. And he didn't seem to feel concerned at all that that's what I had been doing. And I remember saying that, I remember being afraid that of what was happening in my life, and he made some kind of like real chauvinistic, sexist comment about needing to get my body back in order. I was already incredibly sensitive to the idea of Roman finding another woman, very, very, very sensitive with this whole lack of trust that I had, and I just think you couldn't have said the worst thing to me. And it was after that that was my rock bottom. I suffered greatly in silence, and I was miserable, so much so that I remember looking online. Trying to find a new wife and mother for Roman and Callum. I'm ugly. I'm fat, as the doctor called me. I'm a terrible mom because my son's always crying. I'm a terrible wife. I'm just so low, just so low. And what everybody needed was for me to just go away, and for them to find somebody else. I traveled to the US quite a bit that first year of Callum's life, and a lot of that was to give me something to look forward to. It was important to me for him to have connection to his family, and that was one thing that I missed more than anything. I missed the fact that my child was growing up, and my family missed it. They wouldn't be able to see it. As soon as I was back home, kind of away from Germany, away from the doctors, away from the family situation, I started to feel like myself a little bit. But I remember opting out of therapy because I had such a lack of trust for people. My bachelor's degree is in child development, so I've been through a lot of therapy, and I've been through a lot of the coursework and a lot of the practical work of diagnosing things. And the thing that was so shocking to me was that I knew the whole time I had depression. I knew it. I had a word associated to it. I knew what it was. I knew it. But I didn't get help. I didn't get help. And I feel like if I had gotten help right away, even the moment that our family fell apart and I saw somebody and I worked through it, then maybe I could have spared myself from a lot of the pain and the turmoil that I was in. But I didn't. And I really, if there's anything that I can recommend to anybody, it's that if you think you've got depression, if there's somebody in your life that you suspect has depression, postpartum or any kind, find somebody to talk to, because just having somebody who will listen, it makes a big difference. For me, Callum was about 5 months old, and I started feeling like I have to do something to get myself out of it. I missed having a creative outlet. I was suddenly staying at home as a mom. I wasn't working out of the house. I had a husband that was gone a lot with school and work. I had to do something to pull myself out of it. And on September 1st of 2014, I uploaded our very first family vlog on YouTube. And Meet the Vengers was born, and Callum was a little teeny tiny baby. And I remember, you know, filming all these little moments in his life, and while filming them, I remember thinking that I wasn't really feeling much because I was hurting and really recovering at that time. The real magic happened for me when I would put Callan to sleep and I would sit and edit. And that's when the magic happened, because it was almost like I was sitting watching a movie of my son's life, and I got to see the little giggles, I got to see the smiles, and it was almost like I could remove myself from the role of being a mom, because in that moment I'm living it. But looking back, editing the vlogs, I could just watch it. And I could start to feel a lot of those layers of pain just crumble, because I was looking at this baby and he was so perfect. And I looked at that moment from an outside, almost like a third person point of view, because I was watching my life on screen. And I remember thinking that moment was so beautiful. What a beautiful, beautiful moment that was with him. And even though I couldn't feel it when I lived it, because I was struggling so much internally, I could recognize it watching it on the screen on my computer. And watching those moments gradually became what I lived for. And I remember pulling out the camera and filming moments, and like I said, just feeling really nothing, you know, just filming. And yes, I was engaging with him because I loved him, but it's like something was blocking me from finding true happiness in that moment. But looking back and watching the vlog footage at the end of the day, it's like I couldn't be more happy in my life, because I see this mother who's actually doing a pretty decent job of being a mom, and look at my son happy and he's healthy. Something that I would often do is I would vlog and talk about my problems and talk about things that I felt, but then I would look back at them and not relive them, but almost like analyze them from a more medical point of view, from a more therapeutic point of view. And it's almost like I felt okay. Like, you know, I heard it. I've heard it twice now. I said it, and now I've heard it, and now I've accepted it, and I'm dealing with it. And I don't need to show this on the vlog. I'm okay just deleting this footage and moving on. And I would just find myself doing that. Not only that, it gave me this wonderful creative outlet, and I was able to focus on what I loved most, my family. And I was able to get myself out of the slump of staying home and crying all day. I was able to get out and do things, and the vlog kind of forced me to do that. The most important part in all of this is it gave my family the opportunity to see my son grow every day. It made me feel really happy to know that my parents could see Callum crawling for the first time, and my brother and my sister could see him standing up in his crib or dancing, or they got to be a part of his birthdays and Christmases and just all these different holidays and celebrations and things that otherwise they would just hear about on a telephone or talk about on Skype. I started to get out of my depression through these videos, and it became very therapeutic for me. And I started to talk to people who experienced depression themselves and could relate to a lot of the anxiety that I felt, and the nightmares that I had, and the extreme emotions that I felt. And I started to realize this is, I won't call it normal, but it's not like I'm the only person that's dealt with this. And that means I'm not the only person that will get out of it. It's funny because now a lot of you on the vlogs, you say that you find me very uplifting, or very, it's odd for me to talk about myself like that, but you feel inspired by watching our vlogs. And for me, that's a huge compliment, because it's taken me a lot to get to this point. Bad things happen and bad situations may happen, but sometimes the best things in life come from the darkest of times. I know now that my marriage is very strong because we had to fight really hard to make it work. And we had to fight really hard to love and accept each other at our darkest moments. And so I can safely say that I love Roman more now than I did the day that we got married, because of what we've been through together. I do get tears in my eyes thinking about that time, because I think about the time that I lost with my son. I wish that I had those early newborn moments that some of my friends talk about, of just loving being a new mom and everything is beautiful and rosy and amazing. my story was not like that. And sometimes that's hard, because who wants to have depression? You know, like, who wants to be sad? Who wants that? But I went through it and I experienced it. I think that it has made me a better mom, having gone through it, because I value each and every moment with my kids, and it's made me want to do more for them and more with them. It's made me want to take them to every museum and everything, and do all these things with them, because in a sense I don't want to take time for granted. And I have a much greater appreciation for time and for being a mom and for what my role is as a mother. I firmly believe that this whole experience has made me stronger, and it's made me more appreciative, and I think that's a really good place to be. I think that's a good way to see life. I think that's a good place to end this video. I know that I've been talking your ears off, and I thank you for sitting and watching. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, but I can say that if you find yourself in this situation, or if you suspect that someone you know and love is in this situation, please, please, please don't do what I did and wait to get help. Please, please, please be proactive and get help, because the people around you want you to be healthy. Your children want you to be healthy, and you need to be healthy. All right, everybody, I'm gonna end this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind. Love you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.